Guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath Holland. I am joined by the master of crime fiction, Mr. Max Allan Collins. Max, welcome back to Serial at Midnight.
It's great to be here. Maybe we better not do 2 hours like we did last time.
We should reference if people want to see more of you, if this is their first video with you, they should go check out our extended conversation. This is one of the podcast episodes. I'll link to it in the description of this. But one of the things that came through in that conversation is how much you love movies, how much you love film noir. And it was a perfect opportunity for us to talk about something that we both love, which is the new, well, as this video is being recorded, this is the very latest Kino Lorber
Me
film noir
too.
box set.
But I heard you say you didn't like one of the films,
I did not like, yeah, I loved
and
one.
that's
I thought one was
interesting.
okay. What?
So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the one you like the best?
Sure, we can do
Do,
that.
Go ahead. You take
Okay,
it.
well, so I really enjoyed Chicago Deadline. There are three films in this list. We got The Mystery of Marie Roget from 1942. We've got Chicago Deadline, which is 1949, and we've got Iron Man, which is 1951. I thought Chicago Deadline was just a cracking little noir with Allan Ladd and Donna Reed. Just a few years after It's a Wonderful Life, but very different for Donna Reed.
Well, look what's on the top of my pile.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, I,
By the
I
way, we
like
didn't
this
talk
movie a
about any of
lot.
this ahead of time. We should tell people we're completely spontaneous here.
This is not the thing about the Kino Lorber film noir sets is they're very loosely calling these film noir. They're
Yeah.
basically black and white crime movies, but it's a wonderful way for them to market it. This is a genuine film noir, and when you
Yes.
read about, I should know, but I don't know whether it was a published story or whether it was a screen story. But my wife Barb looked at some stuff on Wikipedia and said that originally this was basically a house of prostitution that Donna Reed worked in, and it was the story of how did this girl wind up, a lowly prostitute when she'd had this sort of good girl background from
Hmm.
apparently a
Yeah.
small town or something. So you kind of have to with film noir. You sometimes have to read between the lines because they can't go as gritty as they want to. So they're sending you messages. There's a wink wink, but there's no humor in it.
Yeah.
You
It is based on a novel, which is, I guess, a little bit more. It's a little
That makes
grittier. So,
sense.
1933 novel called One Woman by Tiffany Theer.
Oh
And
yeah,
it was based on a real case. It was based on a 1920 case of Star Faithful,
that's a famous crime.
who was right, found dead. A booklet or like an address book full of names went missing. So very similar to what shows up on the screen, but more, yeah, less sanitized is what we'd say.
And Tiffany Thayer is one of these names of writers in the 20s and 30s that were huge at the time, very well known, and are really completely forgotten, which is scary for a contemporary writer to think about that. Am I going to be gone? And you like to think you're, if not writing for the ages, you're writing for a few decades.
Well, here we are 90 years later after that novel was published, talking about Tiffany Thayer's novel. So we're bringing it back. We're
That's
getting it
good.
back into the zeitgeist.
And
Um,
it shows how important film is because the novel is essentially not gone. I'm sure you can find it on ABE or something, but here it is. Here's this writer's work, as you say, 90 years later,
yeah.
and that shows the impact of film adaptations of crime fiction.
This had an interesting life to the screen too, because the novel was 1933. It was first conceived to star Lee Tracy and Claudette Colbert,
Oh, I'd love
um,
to see this with Lee Tracy.
right? And it never got made. And then, like a decade later, we got Laura and The Big Clock, and somebody at the studio was like, "Let's bring back that old idea," and it ended up being made a Chicago Deadline.
Well, I'm a big Lee Tracy fan. That just sets my brain on fire to think about how perfect that would have been. But I have to say, I think Ladd was really good in this movie.
Yeah.
And he, I had kind of been dismissive of his work other than Shane, and now I'm starting to see some of it. And some of the material he has isn't that great, but he's pretty darn good. He's really he really has incredible screen presence, and like our friend Audie Murphy, he understates and lets everybody else scream and make him look good.
Yeah, Shane was my gateway to Allan Lad as well, and then I've started to discover a lot of these noir films. His stuff with Veronica Lake, I like. Have you seen? I hate to put you on the spot, but he was in a movie called China.
Yeah,
Have you seen that film?
isn't that the one that has a pretty dark ending? Uh,
It's yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was surprised by that film. I was
That's a good one.
and his Glass Key is really good. The only thing I don't like about the Glass Key movie is that it has basically banished the George Raft one from 1933 from ever getting shown around, and it is a phenomenal early proto noir,
Hmm.
and one of the probably arguably the second or third best Hammett adaptation. And
Do
I
you
don't know
want
if you've seen it. It's a really good. I mean,
I don't think that I have. No.
it's one of those movies that reminds you that Raft was really pretty good. He's another one. I really like these understated tough guys.
Yeah.
I I really feel like they're taking the other actors down the garden path. Yeah, overact all you want to. They're going to look at me. That's what I get out at Allan Ladd.
You
And
know a few things about understated tough guys too. You've written a few of them in your day.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we like Randolph Scott in the renowned westerns.
Yes, we do.
Maybe we'll
Oh yeah.
talk about those sometime.
Every now and then those come up. Yeah. Those are great because you see all the experience and all the weariness come through in those movies. But it's like a confidence to like if I know we're off the path now, but if Randolph Scott had made those movies at any other time, I don't think they would have had the weight that they had for when he made them then
No,
in the 50s.
it's his age and
Yeah.
these guys that, and we won't go too far into it, but there's always a sympathetic bad guy who seems to be who Randolph Scott might have been when he was younger.
Yes.
And there's a it's not a father and son thing. It's like a guy talking to himself, but he's talking to the self that didn't learn any lessons, and he's a guy who's learned the lessons. I think Randolph Scott is fabulous, and those movies are so very good, and that's a wonderful collection from, and it really is connected to film noir. Those are yeah, yes, they're widescreens, Ride Lonesome is CinemaScope. Those are about as noir thematically as you get.
Hmm. Yeah. The line is so thin. It's a setting, that's cowboy hats traded for instead of fedoras we have cowboy hats. Instead of the city, we've got the open landscapes of the West, but the themes are exactly the same.
I agree. And what is your number two out of
Well,
this?
no, I want you do your number two because if this was the top of the stack, I'm gonna pass it off to you.
Well, I'm going to completely cop out because I'm going to say this is a tie. If I can,
What?
yeah, and it's a tie. And what I like, I'll tell you what I like about both of them. And they both have weaknesses. But Mystery of Marie Roget, which is with the Poe aspect of it, and Maria
Yeah.
Montez. What's not to like about Maria
The
Montez?
Queen of Technicolor. Yeah.
Yeah, in black and white here, but
Right.
she's
Kind of
still
before all that.
what I really like about this is that this seems like this is like a Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah.
I mean, very much like the Basil Rathbone movies with what's his name? What's the Watson's name?
Is it
Nigel
Nigel
Bruce.
something?
Nigel
Yep. Yep.
Bruce,
There you go.
who is played as a buffoon, which offends some people, but Nigel Bruce was a wonderful buffoon, and the cop in here, the police chief, the prefect, is basically uh, the Nigel Bruce character in the Sherlock Holmes movies. The only thing I really didn't like about this movie is that the last reel didn't make any sense at all. I couldn't I couldn't begin to follow it, and I'm pretty good at following mystery plots. But it's a lot of fun. It really was because having seen all the Sherlock Holmes movies, the
Mhm.
Universal Sherlock Holmes movies, this was like a little found gem. So I really did like it. Uh, But you didn't like Iron Man, huh? Oh,
I no, I didn't like The Mystery of Marie
oh,
Roget.
really?
I did not care for this movie. Well, part of it is probably coming in with expectations. First of all, it's not okay. We don't need people who say this is not film noir because there's enough of those people. But it didn't deliver really what I wanted from anything related to film noir. It takes place in the late 1800s. It's, as you say, it's more like a Sherlock Holmes story. It's sort of a loose sequel to Murders in the Rue Morgue, and it's a thriller slash mystery film that was part of the first shock theater package that went to TV
Oh, yeah.
in 1957. I think it was fall of 57, October, I think. It just didn't do, when I watch a noir, I'm looking for a few specific things, and they weren't really here. Now, having said that, look, it's always great to get a Maria Montez movie because she's in a a limited number of films, and in the last 2 years or so, mostly because of Kino Lorber's deals with Universal, we're getting a lot of her stuff all at one time. And so that's great, but it just didn't do a lot for me. And you hit on it when you were talking about the first film, is that Kino Lorber packages a lot of these movies in film noir box sets, and they're not. It's a very loose definition of what film noir is. And I don't know. If I had come in with the right expectations, I wonder if I would have had a different response to it. And I had hoped to watch it a second time to say, okay, sometimes you go, well, the first time that's on me. I had expectations that weren't met. The second time you go in and meet the movie on its own terms, and I haven't done that yet. So I still need to do that. But it didn't connect with me.
Well, there's the basic problem with all of these discussions is that noir has so many definitions.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they know what noir is. And I mean, there's one I know that Otto Penzler and James Elroy, when they did a noir collection, said no private eye stories. Private eye stories aren't noir. Well, that's ridiculous. That's
Right.
just ridiculous. And you have to go back to the films that got talked about as being noir films were films from the 40s that the French film critics hadn't seen during the war because they weren't distributed there. So they saw all this stuff right after World War II, and they saw all these kind of, frankly, some low end B movies, and also adaptations of things like The Big Sleep and Farewell My Lovely as Murder My Sweet and Maltese Falcon even.
Yeah.
And these are all books by giants of crime fiction. And then there's people that were just not as not the luminaries. Oh, also James M. Cain was major. And so really the noir stuff was descriptive of American novels that were turned into crime films, that and noir got put on as a label because Série Noire from Gallimard, the publisher, they were doing they were publishing these American novels. So the film critics, people like Truffaut and Godard, they connected Série Noire to all of the adaptations of books published by Série Noire that were made into movies by Hollywood. So that's where noir comes from.
There is a noir club though. That's astute because there's a clique for sure. I do want to shout out that this movie was directed, the Marie Roget film was directed by the same guy. Let me check my notes here. It's Phil Rosen, who directed
Oh
Return
yeah.
of the Ape Man, the Bela Lugosi. I know a lot of people have affection for it. It's not a great movie, and he also did a few Charlie Chan films as well.
I'm going to back up because we didn't talk about that, but Lewis Allen was a real good. Is Workaday
Right.
okay to say about something like that? But
Yeah.
I'm seeing that it is produced by Robert Fellows, and Robert Fellows was John Wayne's producer of choice, and became very tight with Mickey Spillane, a name I'm very fond of in the history of crime fiction and noir. And Robert Fellows is the guy that produced Ring of Fear, which Mickey starred in, and he produced The Girl Hunters, which Mickey starred in as Mike Hammer. So when I see these names pop up, it's it's fun, but it's also illuminating.
Hmm.
That talk about small club.
Yeah,
It was a Hollywood was a small club.
it really was. Which it kind of ties into Iron Man because this is directed by Joseph Pevney, who did a ton of stuff at Universal during this period. This is 1951. This is early in Pevney's directorial career. He had done, you can see him on screen. I think he's in six. He had six acting performances, and one of them is in another. I don't remember which volume, but it's in another one of these Kino Lorber box sets. Outside the Wall has a Joseph Pevney performance in it, and then he jumped to directing, and he did a bunch of stuff that I think is really worth people's time. He directed Shakedown, which is this really interesting story about a
Oh yeah,
newspaper, opportunistic newspaper photographer
that's a
who
good movie.
crosses the line. Foxfire, Jane Russell, and Jeff Chandler. Also, there's a literary young movie called Because of You that Joseph Pevney directed that I was like, it feels like more like a melodrama than a noir to me. But then Joseph Pevney directed The Midnight Story with Tony Curtis and Gilbert Roland, and I thought that was wonderful. And this is sort of in the middle of those. I thought it was middle of the road. Interesting that the characters are named. So it's a boxing movie for people
Yeah.
that it's a boxing movie. Jeff Chandler plays a he kind of wants to be left alone. He gets kind of roped into boxing, and he's not great at it. But when he's on the ropes, he just goes blind. He turns it like a blind rage overtakes him, and he becomes very violent. And he just like beats the tar out of his opponent. It's a very southern. It's my southern coming out. He beats the tar out of him. But I thought it was really interesting because it gets to explore those themes of like the darkness within, and it does have the noir things, some of the noir things that I want, which is our, wrestling with ourselves, trying to overcome a darkness within us. So I don't know. This was, it was in the middle for me.
Well, Pevney, of course, is best known today for Star Trek, for
Yeah.
being a Star Trek director. Uh, but the key name here is not Joe Pevney. The key name here is W.R. Burnett, the screenwriter,
Yep.
because this is the guy who wrote Little Caesar. This is the guy who wrote High Sierra, and He's one of the rare guys that did adapt a lot of his own movies because he was a pretty popular and successful screenwriter. Oh, there's a little film called The Asphalt Jungle from his novel, The Asphalt Jungle. And as a screenwriter, how interesting is this? He was the screenwriter of Sergeant's Three, the Rat Pack cavalry western, and wrote the movie novelization. He must have been, I don't know, 70. He must have been my age, you know. And then he also has a co-screenwriting credit on The Great Escape. So you've got a guy who wrote Little Caesar and also was the co-writer of The Great Escape. How cool, a somewhat forgotten writer this guy is. And this was a film which I have to admit I've never seen, but I've got the first edition of the novel, which was like maybe a 1932 novel, and there was like maybe a 1933 Lou Ayres movie, same title. This is a remake, and the story makes a lot more sense as a Depression era story
Yeah.
than it does as a mid 50s story. And Lou Ayres, and I like Jeff Chandler, but Jeff Chandler does have a certain tough guy aspect to him. He can play tough guys. Lou Ayres, Dr. Kildare, was the boxer, and I believe in that movie. Now I haven't seen it, but you can really see how that gentle side of Lou Ayres turning into a frenzied killer in the ring would be pretty
Mhm.
darn interesting.
Yeah.
So, and you can also see how somebody in the Depression having the opportunity to make the kind of money you can make, as a really successful boxer in the Depression. Even in the 50s, though, they're talking about, at one point, they're talking about 10 grand like it's $1 million,
Hmm.
which I found was, I mean, I like 10 grand. Don't get me wrong. You can send all the 10 grand checks to my house you want to, but it is kind of it's like the Dr. Evil moment. $1 million, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the movie you're talking about, it's in 1931, and it was directed by Todd Browning, the guy that did Dracula
Well, how cool is
and
that? I
Freaks.
wish I'd seen this movie.
I know I hadn't seen it either, and hopefully we can see if there's I don't know if there's I don't even know if it's around, if it's in print or anything. So we'll have to do a little research on that. But Yeah, super interesting that yeah, but these movies are so obscure. That's one of the things that these box sets afford this the opportunity to have we have these movies that like really maybe they got a VHS release back in the day. Maybe they played on I mean maybe they're Turner Classic movies. I don't think I'd ever seen them on there, but they're really obscure most of the time. So they get us talking about things that are deep from those vaults.
Speaking of noir tinged boxing movies, and I forget which film noir set from Kino Lorber it's in, but one of the stray Audie Murphy movies that's not a Western is in one of the film noir boxes by them, and just the last two or three film noir
Yeah.
boxes called World in His Corner. And it was the follow-up to the movie that was his life story, to Hell and Back, the World War II that showed what a hero he was in World War II.
Hmm.
Murphy, Audie Murphy, and they did not put him immediately into another Western. They tried him in, and it was the same director, I think Jesse Hibbs, the same director as To Hell and Back, and it's a pretty gritty little boxing movie. And there's a moment which was what made me really think of it. There's a moment in the boxing ring when he's hit and he goes down and he has a look in his eyes that you don't see from him very often. But when you see the look in his eyes, you understand the Jeff Chandler character in Iron Man, and you understand, oh, this is the guy that killed, how many Germans and Sicilians in
Yeah.
World War II. There is a quiet killer in there. Because I showed it to my wife. I said, I want to show you a freeze frame. And the look in his face and the look in his eyes, I'm thinking, oh, that guy just actually hit him. you know
Yeah.
the other actor actually hit him, and he's about to, he's probably going to get hit now.
What on
That
that
movie.
note, what do you make of the fact that the characters in this movie, the characters in Iron Man, so Jeff Chandler's character is named Coke
Oh,
and Rock Hudson is Speed. Coke and Speed.
I kind of think that's an accident, because I think the Coke is a coal reference.
Okay.
It's because they're coal miners.
Yeah.
And I think Speed is just on its face is that I mean, it's a good observation.
So I'm bringing in my 21st century my biases and my expectations.
Yeah, but I mean, cocaine was around, and
It sure was.
do you buy John Lennon saying that Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is just something that had nothing to do with LSD? I don't think
No.
he
Julian
he
came in and
discussed
he'd
much.
drawn a picture at school. Yeah, no, I don't buy that.
Yeah, no. So anyway, so are we going to do our top five or five plus film
But yeah,
noir?
let's wrap this one up. We'll tease this for the audience. So when we wrap this up, we're gonna go record a video about our top five film noir.
All right.
So I don't know when you're gonna see that, but you want to stay tuned for it because it is gonna be coming soon. I want to thank Kino Lorber for continuing to, I mean, 16 volumes, and there's at least two more on the way, right? So we'll have to do this again at some point, maybe for the next one. I love noir is one of my favorite things. I love talking about these box sets, and I love talking to you about crime movies. So
Well,
thank
you
you for
should
being
thank
here.
me, because I'm keeping Kino Lorber in business with all of the Blu-rays I buy every month.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm box after box comes, and if they want to send me free stuff, they can, but they might be out of business then the next week, because I'm spending buku bucks on Kino
You
Lorber.
got to keep writing novels. We should mention, I mean, I think people know, but you are the creator of Road to Perdition, Quarry, Nathan Heller. You got to keep writing novels so you can afford the new the new box sets that come out.
Well,
There you
this is the
go.
current one. Can I hold? Yeah, this
Please
is the
do.
current one,
Please
and
do.
and I think it's one of my best. So,
It
uh,
is. I
give
love it. Well, I
give this a
they're all
try.
good.
Thank
One the thing that it's like this little detail that I just latched onto over and over is you keep talking about a character that has Cher eye makeup, and I just love that little detail.
Well, I lived through those years. That's the crazy thing about this series, is that I started out, researching the 20s and 30s. now I'm researching years that I lived through, but my memory's so bad I have to refresh it.
I loved it. I love that book. Also
Thank you.
maxallancollins.com. You want people to go check out the website, and everything's kind of stems from that site, right?
Yeah, and I do a weekly update. It appears on every Tuesday morning, and so it's both me talking about stuff like you and I are talking about, Heath, but also information about what books are out there and what's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, stick around, Max. We're going to talk about our top 5 film noir. You guys watching at home, what do you guys think about these film noir titles? Definitely weigh in the comments below. Do all the things that you do, like subscribe and comments. But let's spread the love of classic cinema. It's needed now more than ever. So, Max, thank you. You guys, thank you. Till next time, we will catch you later.